Welcome back to Double Take. I'm Alex Safey, here with my brother John, and we're coming at you on another boring Monday afternoon where, Donovan Mitchell just casually dropped 57 points in game one of the playoffs.
But it was casual, though. That's really how it looked, honestly. It looked easy for him.
It did seem casual. And John, we were planning on doing this episode this afternoon. We were going to plan to do it right during the Raptors versus the Toronto Raptors versus the Brooklyn Nets game, because that game's going to be a blowout.
Which was a good idea because right now the score is 62-35 in the second.
Wow, John. Thank you for that. That's, great decision by us. And we were able to catch the first game of the playoffs, which was the Denver Nuggets versus the Utah Jazz. And I was feeling a little tired. I'm like, dang, I'm gonna need to drink a coffee or something before I do this episode. I'm not really feeling energy, but that game just hyped me up. I'm super excited for the playoffs, and what a way to start the first bubble playoff game.
Yeah, you'd think they'd want to start with Lakers, Blazers, or whatever. Obviously, that's tomorrow because the Blazers have less time to prepare. But this really was. You're Jazz, Nuggets. There's not really star power. It's kind of there's no household names that any random non-NBA fan would know of in this series. However, if you look at it, the teams, I thought going in, this was one of the most fun because it's evenly matched. So I saw a tweet the other day on Twitter. It was from the Ringer's Paolo Getty, who he does a lot of good NBA stuff, writes a lot of interesting pieces. But this to me was just a horrible take. He goes, Rockets, Thunder, and Sixers, Celtics are going to be the only compelling first-round series unless the Blazers get in. So this is we've all been missing basketball for 4.5 months. We finally are in the playoffs. It's August. Again, this would have been the start of the next season, but we're all craving this and to come in hot like that. Yeah, these first round is not going to be that good. I was yo, what? And this is the first series I thought of. I was Jazz versus the Nuggets to me are two very evenly matched teams. And although it's the 3 seed versus the 6 seed, right before the bubble, the Jazz had the number 4 seed. So
yeah, it was 3-4.
To me, they're two pretty evenly matched teams. And again, obviously, the Jazz had some injuries today, but Mitchell just made up for it with his 57 points. He just absolutely went off.
Exactly. And that's what I thought going in. This wouldn't be too interesting of a series because I just thought Denver would handle these guys and the Jazz now, they're missing Bojan Bogdanovic because he didn't enter the bubble. He got surgery.
Is it Bojan or Bogdan?
It's Bojan.
Bojan.
And they're going to miss him on offense. And then Mike Conley, who was actually playing a lot better in the bubble than he did all regular season long. He had 4 over 20-point games. He just had his newborn baby. I think it's a daughter, newborn daughter, and he had to leave the bubble, obviously. So they missed him too.
Yeah, how do we feel about that?
Well, dude, obviously you're gonna leave
good dad, bad teammate, though, right?
Huh?
Good dad, bad teammate.
Yeah, maybe Donovan Mitchell's a little salty, but
no, honestly, he takes the ball out of Mitchell's hands. Mitchell was probably happy. He's oh, Mike's not here. I'm getting 57.
Well, I'm sure he knew he needs to pick up the slack on offense. So that's why he went out and got 57. I actually think this game, him scoring 57 and them still losing, is indicative of this series won't go very long. I think 6 games max. And today, really quick.
So
yeah, it went to overtime, but still. So today, obviously, we're doing our playoff preview, but really quick, we wanted to cover this game. I just want to give 2 stats, which were incredible to see in the first game, especially. Mitchell scored 57 points, and only 2 players have ever scored more in a playoff game. Michael Jordan with 63 and 86, and Elgin Baylor with 61 and 62 in 1962. That's crazy. That's a huge. I was watching dang, we're really, really witnessing history. His name will go down in the history books for years. And the other thing was Jamal Murray, who he came up huge in the clutch time for the Nuggets, and he really ended that game. He's the 3rd player over the past 20 postseasons with 20 points and 5 assists in the 4th quarter and or overtime of a playoff game. The only 2 other guys who have done it is Steve Nash and Tracy McGrady. So another, that's a huge thing. He's in a pretty elite company, and Jamal Murray, he's a guy. He's a guy. He's never been an all-star. He's a stud. He can get buckets, but we've never seen him as someone who's gonna be up there with the names. So
yeah, but you know what? I hate to say it, Alex. You bring up these 2 stats, and I think some of our listeners might be wondering, if this asterisk talk is about to come into play, right? You know, in our Miami Heat fan group chat, shout out Caesar who made this point. Our boy Caesar.
He's
He
actually
said,
not a Heat fan, but it's a Heat group chat
exactly.
anyway.
It's the Heat group chat. So Caesar said, it's a shooter's gym. Like after this game, he's like, people are going to start talking about the asterisk because, and that worries me because, like you just mentioned, Alex, Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell are in elite company right now. Steve Nash and Tracy McGrady for the Jamal Murray fourth quarter statistics, and Michael Jordan and Elgin Baylor, the only two players who score more points in a playoff game than Donovan Mitchell. So the reason that worries me is that, maybe it's true. Maybe no fans in the arena. Is that really going to look like guys are just going to go off? I guess it's more fun. And again, all players are playing at the same level. So you know what? If a team does better than another one, it's not because, it's a unconventional setting. They're all playing with the same rules. But I know that this will start to be talked about, like, are all these players just about to be shooting better because they're in a bubble in Orlando, So we'll see what happens with that storyline with the NBA.
Yeah. I mean, my thing to that, my response is just like, at the end of the day, it's still NBA talent against NBA talent. So to me, it's kind of crazy. I guess, I mean, does the gym make that much of a difference? I know the fans do, and it's definitely a different atmosphere when it's the playoffs and you have all, like, it's a whiteout or whatever color. All the fans are wearing those color shirts, and like they're making noise and waving their towels. Like, that's different. And maybe Mitchell wouldn't have 57 if he's playing in Denver. But at the same time, like, it's NBA players against NBA players. So
yeah, I hope you're right about that. I mean, we'll see.
Anyway, without any further ado, I'm glad we could address that and we were able to watch that game and get it in there. But now, to the meat and potatoes of this episode, it is our playoff preview and some of our predictions. The way we're going to talk about that, the format will be we're going to do our top 10 most interesting teams going into the playoffs. So, to start it off, I think the most interesting team, I guess the first couple shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but I think it's definitely the Lakers. Now, they've been out of the playoffs for 6 seasons. Last year, LeBron James joined them. They still missed it. This year, they finally get Davis. So the big question is, like, are they going to take the Lakers back to the promised land? And for years we saw with LeBron James, we saw people say, well, the East is easy. That's why he got to all these finals. It was an easy path every time. He had to beat the Atlanta Hawks and the Raptors, whatever. And now LeBron's in the West. They locked up the 1 seed. And if you look at these potential matchups that they're gonna have of 4 rounds, like if they make it to the finals, the Lakers are going through a gauntlet, dude. Like, first round, you got Damian Lillard and Blazers. They're one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. They just got the 8th seed, obviously, in that incredible game versus Memphis. And Damian Lillard is he's shooting lights out right now. He just dropped 50 and 60 and 40, whatever. He's playing incredible. And that team is way more talented than a normal 8 seed, in my opinion. I think it goes without saying. Then if they win that round, they're probably going to have to play against 2 former MVPs, James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And that team is a very volatile team. Like, they could be really bad, but I think on some nights they could also be really good. And there's some upset potential there. We're going to talk later about James Harden. He hasn't had any huge playoff moments yet. Then, of course, Kawhi, Paul George versus the Clippers. If they make it to the conference finals, that's the likely matchup. And there's nothing more to say about that. We've covered those matchups multiple times on this show. But playing against Kawhi and Paul George, 2 of the best defenders in the league, and guys that LeBron's gone head-to-head with in the playoffs before, that's a tough game too.
Yeah, I mean, just in those teams that you mentioned, I can, like, kind of say there's about 5 MVP-ish candidates, right? Dame's definitely MVP caliber. He's never been there, but
well, this season at least he is.
Yeah, he could say a top 5, top 3 NBA MVP type of guy. Then in the next series, Westbrook and Harden are both MVP guys, and I mean they actually both have MVPs.
Yeah.
And then the next series, it's a Finals MVP, 2-time Finals MVP in Kawhi, who's definitely capable of winning an MVP, and Paul George, who last season in 2019 was the top 3. He finished top 3 in MVP voting. So you just look there in that Western Conference, like, that's definitely better than any year LeBron went like, Indiana, Toronto, who would be next? The Hawks or, whichever other
or
one.
the Celtics with like Isaiah Thomas, So, and then, of course, so that you're right. They're all MVP caliber guys. And then the cherry on top, if they do make it to the finals, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the MVP, probably back-to-back MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and his team, the Bucks, who have put up some historical numbers this season. And this leads me to my point in we're gonna get into our brackets later, but I do not think the Lakers, as much as it pains me to say because I love LeBron, I do not think they're gonna win the championship this season. I think since we've seen them in the bubble, their depth has looked a lot worse, and they've become increasingly dependent on guys like Kyle Kuzma, Alex Caruso, and Quinn Cook. And I know in our pre-bubble episode, I was talking about how Davis is the X factor for this team, and if Davis just goes off, then like the NBA probably won't have an answer for him. But now I'm starting to think, even if Davis and LeBron, I mean, I guess if they both are just, playing at an extremely high level, then it'll be hard to beat that team. But I still think like the X factor is going to be the bench, because the bench players, they're going to need some production from those guys. And right now they're looking a little thin.
Yeah. So I can get into my bracket. We're going to reveal our brackets, obviously, throughout this episode. I did pick the Lakers. And although it doesn't seem like maybe the most rational, I mean, not rational, but on paper, basketball, who's looked the best? Obviously, they are the 1 seed. But a lot of people are saying the Clippers are a more complete team. The Bucks are a more complete team. And the Lakers have a tough path because they had the draw of the Blazers in the first round, Rockets in the second round. Obviously, they'll have to go through the Clippers in the third. So I'm sticking with them for pretty much one reason, and that's LeBron James. I'm not willing to hop off that bandwagon just yet. What we've seen LeBron do in the playoffs, the last time he was there, was he dragged a team with, who was the most important? He didn't really have, for the first round, they won in Game 7 versus the Pacers when he was on the Cavaliers in 2018. And in that first round, he had no other player on his team in one game score 20 points or more. Yeah. So I think it was the first time ever a player had done that, won a playoff series with no other teammate scoring higher than 19, right? So he carried that team. He won another Game 7 on the road in the final series in the Eastern Conference, right, against the Celtics. And he just dragged that team, and then all the way to the Kevin Durant, Steph Curry Warriors, where he had 51 points in the first game. If it were not for the JR, throwing away the ball at the end of the game, they probably would have stolen at least one game against that super team. So That was the last LeBron James we've seen in the playoffs. So yes, I know he has
2 years. 2 years.
It's been longer than 2 years because that was June of 20.
Oh my goodness, it's been over 2 years since that.
It's been 50 months. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Wait, 50? No, not 50 month.
Well, no. 24.
You're way wrong.
Yeah.
24.
My math is way off. 24, so 26 months. I just multiplied it by 2. I don't know why. But so getting back to the point, the last time we saw LeBron, he was excellent. We have no reason to believe that we've seen him not be great towards the end of the regular season, and then we see him turn it on, right? So I still think he's going to turn it on. The only way I can see them not doing that is if he's just old. And you look at his matchups, okay? Can you see LeBron losing to the Blazers realistically?
No, they're winning. They're winning that series.
No. I would not be surprised if that was a sweep, but I picked 4-1 for that series. Second round, the Rockets. Westbrook and Harden, are they really and all their great playoff success, are they really going to be the ones to shoot LeBron out of the playoffs? Absolutely not.
I wouldn't bet on that either. I have the Lakers making the finals but at the same time, those 2 series are going to take a lot out of the Lakers. More than it should.
That's definitely true. So I guess you were saying LeBron will just be so much more spent by the third round than he ever has been in his career. I guess that's true. He's also the oldest he's ever been in his career, obviously. But then we get to the Clippers series. And if the Clippers just shoot lights out, Kawhi and Paul George lock down LeBron, and Davis isn't playing as great as he should be in the fourth quarter.
He's been out of the first round 1 time. So
well, listen, they're
going to be depending on him.
He also hasn't had LeBron James on his team. So I think, but that's another thing. And LeBron's
saying experience. He doesn't have experience.
But AD's also going to keep LeBron hopefully fresh enough, right, to be playing with. He's got his little horse right there that's going to do a lot of the work.
Well, guess what? Right? He needs to have the clutch gene, and I don't know if his horse has the clutch gene.
We'll see what happens in that Clippers series, and especially the Rockets series as well when they go small. Davis is going to be a huge X factor for this team. But then when we talk about the Clippers, I don't see LeBron James losing in a Game 7. I just can't. Backs against the wall. Sure. It's not going to happen. I don't think. You
can't bet on it. You can't bet against him yet.
Especially because it's going to be on his home court. It's the Lakers have home court, so their virtual fans are going to be watching.
Yeah, the virtual fans are going to be very rowdy.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding about that. I really wondered. Yeah. I'm wondering what I want to see players say if they think it means anything home court. Like we haven't really seen a quote from
Well,
like
clearly not. I mean, Eric Spoelstra pretty much tanked the last 2 games of the season, not really caring just to rest his guys. And
that
we
is
got the
true.
5 seed against the Pacers, and
We
they don't
we did
care.
give up home court. We did do that.
So
But just to get back to my point, I don't see LeBron losing that game 7. And then we get to the finals. I can't see the Lakers. Like, is that Milwaukee team? Like, is Brooke Lopez and Eric Bledsoe and Chris Middleton, like, are those going to be the guys that really, like, step over LeBron in that series? I just don't
John,
see
you bring up a great point. This is a segue to my number 2 team. It is actually the Bucks. And
the second most interesting team.
The second most interesting team. The reason there's no questions about it. It's because of Giannis. Giannis, he's going to be the back-to-back MVP. He's going to be the Defensive Player of the Year, and he's one of the great. He's going to be an all-time great by the time his career is over. But we have not yet seen him have huge playoff success. Last year, of course, they were disappointed versus the Raptors when they blew a 2-0 lead in that series. But Giannis is doing certain things that only a select group has done, top 10, top 15, top 20 type guys. But it's time for him to deliver in the playoffs. And, John, you mentioned the supporting cast. While Giannis is going to really have to perform, I think the supporting cast, they get a lot of people make a big deal about Chris Middleton being like their quote-unquote number 2, and he's like their second best guy. But to me, you're right. A lot of people are right. Actually, our high school biology teacher, shout out Mr. Conan, he was recently saying, Middleton's he'd be a good as a number 3, but he's not a number 2. And
right.
I think that's an accurate description of who he is. But I think they have 3 guys that would be a solid third option in Middleton, Lopez, and Bledsoe. So it's like, yeah, is Middleton the best number 2?
You're just doing the math. If you have 3 number 3 options, does that now count as a number 2 option?
Essentially, yes. Because on any given night, I mean, we saw in the bubble, and I guess the bubble is a little different and whatever. Lopez, he's an incredible 3-point shooter now. He had like 34 points the other night.
Listen, Alex,
so Bledsoe can play great defense. These guys, they can have good nights. So what I'm saying is, even though he doesn't have a Davis, he doesn't have a Paul George, he doesn't even have a Westbrook. Like, he has enough guys, and they're a deep team, and they have a good system. They have a great coach. And at the end of the day, Giannis, I think, is the best player in the NBA, and that's going to be good for them. But the reason I think they're the most interesting team is because of everything that I just said and the expectations that the Bucks have. But also, there's a lot of pressure on them because guess what? In now 1 year, we have free agency. And Giannis, if he doesn't win this season and if he doesn't win next season, he's going to be packing his bags and heading to South Beach. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. So you're actually betting us the Heat aren't going to get him when you say that the Bucks are going to win it, huh?
Well, anything can happen. I mean, Kawhi Leonard, they won the championship, and he ended up going to –
Right. All right, well, let me get back to my point, though, about the Bucks. The reason I don't see them doing it is because I just think back. I know they were better this season than they were last season, but it's not like too much has changed. Yeah, you swap out Wes Matthews and Kyle Korver in place of Brogdon. And Brooke Lopez, you mentioned, he's been shooting lights out. He's been doing that. So they got the system. We know what the system is. And we saw the Raptors stop it last year, right? And they were up 2-0. And I know they barely, lost to the Raptors because in Game 3, it went to overtime. And if they go up 3-0, we all know that no NBA team has ever come back from being down 3-0. However, just watching that series, I really looked at Giannis like, as great as he is, he doesn't have the ability, and like I hate to say this to such a great player, to like take over and like get a bucket at the end of the game.
Crazy.
Let me finish. When a smart team defense is around them, and I'll just finish. Like, this is what I said. I remember at the end of those games, like I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it was Game 3 or Game 4. We watched Giannis drive. They had already a good primary defender on him, whether it was OG or Kawhi or Norman Powell or whoever they were sending, or Siakam. And they sent 2 or 3 dudes at him. And you know what they did at the end of the game? They tossed it out. And who's at the top of the key wide open? Eric Bledsoe. With 1 minute and 45 seconds left, this is something I talked about on the last Bill Simmons podcast. With 1 minute and 45 seconds left, you're down 3 in the game. Do you count on Eric Bledsoe? Do you count on Brooke Lopez? Do you count on Chris Middleton to hit that open 3?
Dude, listen, obviously Giannis is going to need some of his players to step up.
He's going to need all of them to step up because he doesn't have
any game. I'm saying, yeah, throughout the playoffs, they're all going to have to step up. And, yeah, if Bledsoe plays like he did the past 2 playoffs, they're not gonna win. Like they need Bledsoe to give you. So and Bledsoe has had
He
a
needs to
lot of.
be like the Jamal Murray to Giannis's
But honestly, I
Jokic.
disagree
You know what I'm
because
saying?
there's lineups you
He
can
does
put
not
out.
have that second fiddle guy.
You can have lineups where you don't even have Bledsoe in there. If you want to surround Giannis with the best shooters and just have Giannis on the ball or Middleton on the ball, you don't really need Bledsoe. Bledsoe's more because he's a great defensive player. But if you put in Wes Matthews and Kyle Korver and Lopez and I think they still have Ilyasova, like you put in those guys, like you have some shooters. You have DiVincenzo, Dante DiVincenzo has been playing pretty well too. So like yeah, these guys are young, they're unproven, but
Listen, there are no like Anthony
the best
Davis,
team.
LeBron James combos. There are no Westbrook Harden
Yeah,
type of like,
no one's saying that. No one's saying
No,
that. But
I
guess
know.
what? They still have Giannis. So
right. And just quickly to throw in there, I did pick the Bucks to get upset actually in the second round to our Miami Heat. I think Heat with and it's a combination of our defense, the amount of defenders we can throw at Giannis, and I really
Yeah.
think we're gonna
Good. Why don't you
effectively
save
throw
it?
that wall at him.
Save it for when we talk because we're gonna talk about the Heat soon.
All right, we'll get to it.
I'll ask you. I'll bring it right to you. But I also wanted to say you're crazy for thinking Giannis can't get a bucket in the end of the game and take over. I mean, did you watch? I know that the time we played them in the bubble, we didn't have Goran or Jimmy to close for us. But that's the definition of what you just described. Like that's the definition of taking over. Like what Giannis did in that game, we could not stop him. And I know we've done all this thing about Bam and Jimmy Butler and Jay Crowder and Andre Iguodala being able to throw guys at Giannis and slow him down. In that game, if you watch, he really didn't do a great job. And obviously he's a great player.
We were also up 23 points in that game without two of our best players, without our first best player and our third best player.
And we had we put on a shooting clinic. That's why.
Yeah, and we blew it at the end, but I don't see that happening when you got Jimmy, dribbling out the clock at the fourth quarter with the lead. He's going to say, all right, like, let's hold on to it. I got the lead. I got the ball. They just cut our 20-point lead to 10, but I'm not going to let it get any worse. And that's what happened when you have a superstar closer on your team. So,
well, we'll see. We will see, obviously. Okay, this next team is going to come as a bit of a surprise. I actually don't have the Clippers as number 3 interesting team, even though they're going to be number 4. I picked the Mavericks, but mostly because of one player, and it's Luka. I just think, obviously, the Clippers, I think the reason I just think they're less interesting is because I think you know a little bit more with what you're going to get from them. With this Mavericks team, Luka is playing like a top 5 player in the league right now, and he's super young. So that combination of those two things, and they have a really solid supporting cast. They have the best offensive rating of all time, apparently. So I think you combine all those things, and I'm just really interested. All right, how is this going to work out in the playoffs? How is this going to work out versus Kawhi and Paul George? How is Luka going to be able to perform when he has the most pressure he's probably had in his life? I mean, I know he's played in championship in whatever league it was. I can't remember now. It's like the Spain one, either whatever. Yeah. Now you're in the NBA playoffs, and it's his first NBA playoffs, and it's gonna be very interesting to see how he performs.
Yeah, and you know what, Alex? I think that's fine. That's a fair to put them at number 3. Obviously, it's probably the Clippers, but the reason to me they're not as high as an interesting team is because the over/under for games that they win in this playoffs is probably like 1.5. The question is, will they lose to the Clippers in 6 games or in 5 games? And I hate to say I had them losing in 5. One thing I will say, the reason you're right. No, let me finish. I totally agree with you. Like, for all the points you said, the only problem was that they shot themselves in the foot by getting the 7th seed. But if their bubble play could have been a lot better, they could have, maybe tried harder in these games.
Well, they could have beaten the Phoenix Suns.
My safe bet of the week, right? They could have not rested their guys as much, and they could have tried going for that 6 or the 5 or the 4 seed, right? And instead, if their first 2 rounds were going to look like, any of the Houston, anyone from the Houston, Denver, and Utah group, or OKC, if they had those 2 guys in their first 2 rounds, let's say, like if they were the 3 seed or whatever, I guess the 3 that they end up playing it, the Clippers in the end. But I would totally be all in. I'd be like, all right, they're going to steal a first round series. They're going to, get to the second round. They can give the Lakers or Clippers a good run for their money in the second round. But however, the fact that they're playing the Clippers this early in the playoffs is like, I don't see the Clippers losing. Obviously they're out of whack right now. Montrez is going to be easing back into it. So that means Kristaps is going to be shooting over whoever's guarding him. But at the same time,
no matter what.
the same time, the way that the Clippers they were built to stop a player like LeBron of his size and skill set, I also think they probably were built to stop a guy like Luka. And that's why, unfortunately, I don't think they're going to go that far in this series.
So, yes, transitioning – while still talking about the Mavericks, transitioning to the Clippers, I think the reason that the Mavericks are they have more chance to upset the Clippers than a lot of people are giving them credit for. Like, I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they went 7 games. Like, you can see a scenario in which the Clippers, they haven't had all their guys healthy. They've had some guys out of the bubble. They haven't all season long.
Are you talking about Lemon Pepper Lou?
I'm talking about Lemon Pepper Lou. And all season long, they've kind of done this thing where with the load management and not having everyone at full strength, and then they had this 3-month break or 4-month break. And
4.5.
At the beginning of the bubble, Kawhi said, we're going to take these 8 games to really build up our chemistry. That's super important. And, they didn't look great. I mean, they had a lot of games. They lost to the Phoenix Suns. They lost to the Brooklyn Nets. They had these outings where it was just very confusing to look at the box score. And like Kawhi and Paul George were still playing like 34 minutes. Meanwhile, they were losing to those crappy teams. So, which is why I think there's really a scenario in which you tell me that team, the Mavericks, with the number 1 offensive rating right now, let's say they shoot lights out. Let's say Kristaps Porzingis just goes off, and I mean, who's gonna be guarding him? Zubac, Harold's
it's gonna be a lot of Zubac.
Harold's still got to work himself into the lineup. Yeah, a lot of Zubac, too much. And so I actually think that'll be a better series than everyone thinks it will. Although
they're gonna have to play. They're gonna have to play like the math equation game where they just say we're gonna shoot this amount of threes, and we're gonna use our offense. And like the thing is, they probably won't be able to defend that well though. So it will be an interesting series. I do think it's a fun series. I know, right? Like the tweet I talked about from Paolo Uggetti at the beginning, he said only Rockets, Thunder, and Sixers, Celtics would be interesting. I actually think this is probably the second or third most interesting series in the first round. Yeah. So definitely looking forward to that one.
For sure. And so, obviously the Clippers are a much better defensive team. The Mavericks, they're not known for their defense, not even close. If this series becomes a shootout, like you said, John, if they're just like, we're taking 33s tonight, and they make however many of them, that's you can see the path towards them winning it. So we'll see. That's a great series. That brings me to the next team after the Clippers. We have the Miami Heat, another team that has a lot of upset potential. I guess by definition, no matter what, it's an upset. I guess not really, because we're the 5 seed. We're still favored over the 4th ranked.
Yeah, we are. I wonder what the money line is for that series.
We're still favored. Yeah, we're definitely favored in the series.
We're like plus 300 or something like that. I'm sorry, minus 300. The Pacers are probably plus 300 to win the series.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. But to start off talking about the Heat, I just want to say first off, screw the Sixers fans and Sixers and all those people who said Jimmy's not a winner. He's choosing to go be the guy on an 8 seed. Heat aren't making the playoffs, and if they do, it's a first round out. Or why would you leave Embiid and Simmons? That's so dumb. Well, here's why. Here's why he did it. He left Embiid and Simmons.
It is so funny to look back on it.
To play with Bam Adebayo, who's better than Embiid. I'm saying it, and Duncan Robinson, who's a far better 3-point shooter than Simmons.
So I mean, more than far. That's probably as big of a gap in NBA history. If you could just pick 2 players as 3-point shooters. Like Ben Simmons and Duncan Robinson's as far of a gap as you can have.
Absolutely. And that's why. So, there's that whole aspect of it. And I know we're not playing the Sixers in the first round, which would have really been interesting to see Jimmy versus his old team.
We would have swept them.
And it would have been really nice to beat the Philadelphia 76ers. I would have loved to do that. But
the Celtics will do that for us, though.
Of course. Yeah, that's going to happen easily. And I'm really interested to see the next round matchup, which we're likely going to be playing the Milwaukee Bucks, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I think we're the top 5 interesting team, is because we have Bam. We've talked about this a ton in the past few weeks. We have Bam, who we put him on Giannis. He's done a great job, and we have our shooters. And the only path to beat, like we said with the Clippers, the only path to beating a great team like that is by just going unconscious from the 3-point line. Like the way the Bucks offense, the way the Bucks play defense is they give up a lot of 3-pointers, and the only way to beat that team is to literally just shoot lights out. So if we have a guy like Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero gets hot, maybe Kendrick Nunn can get over his
And hold
his
on, we
slump.
also need to talk about Jay Crowder, who's all of a sudden like a knockdown 3-point shooter since he's gotten traded to us. It's incredible to watch.
It's funny because when we traded for him, I looked at his numbers, and it's like he was shooting like 33% for his career, which is below average. Averages are like right around 35-36% from three. With every game he's played with the Heat, now he's 44%, like 40, almost 45. So Jay Crowder's been lights out. So if we're just hitting our threes, we get really hot in a series. Like we can make the upset. I obviously I picked the Bucks to win it all. So my heart, if my heart was making a bracket, the Heat and the Lakers would be in the finals, with the Heat probably winning. But my head, I'm not gonna bet against Giannis because at the end of the day, I'm gonna pick the better player over the better team, even though the Bucks are the better team. I think our 1 through 10 is better than the Bucks 1 through 10. They just have the best number 1. So that's the difference. But I do think it's gonna be really interesting. That series is gonna be incredible, and I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, so I mean, getting back to the points I was making at the beginning of the episode, we're talking about the Bucks. We're gonna throw that wall at Giannis, and he's gonna have to pass it out to his other dudes. And we're gonna see if Eric Bledsoe hits those shots, if Brook Lopez hits them, if Dante DiVincenzo hits those shots, then you know what? They're gonna have a shot and they're gonna take us out. However, there's no home court, so that really, screwed them over because they were the number 1 seed. They worked all season to get it. Now they're not gonna get the reward of that. And they're either – so if you look at either what we did in the regular season, they showed no evidence that they could beat us when we were at full strength, okay? So if you pick the Bucks, you're just predicting that something out of the ordinary is going to happen. Something is going to happen. They're going to play just differently than they did in the regular season. But if you also look to last year's playoffs, they didn't prove it then either. So they didn't prove it in the regular season versus the Heat when they played us, and they matched up against us. And they didn't. It's not like, oh, well, they flipped the switch in the playoffs because we didn't see that happen last year. I really do think this team is so one-dimensional. They're very Giannis-centric. And when you pluck that nucleus out, right, like when you know how to stop it, I'm not saying, obviously the regular season game they played in the bubble, and he went off. But again, like I said, we didn't have Dragic, we didn't have Butler to close out that game. I'm really going to just be curious because you know what? If you tell me, no, John, the Bucks are going to win. Okay, I get it. They're the number 1 seed. They're the best team. They're the best player, whatever. But I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know what the roadmap to them doing it is because if we look at the regular season, we matched up with them so well. We took them out. And again, last playoffs, we didn't see them do it. So I'm just waiting to see what's going to change. Is Giannis going to start hitting shots, step back threes like Jamal Murray just was in the last game we just watched? So
well, you make a good point, and that's a pretty compelling argument. We have not seen them. We haven't seen Giannis or the Bucks dominate in the playoffs yet, and we have not seen them really beat the Heat in the regular season this year when the Heat were at full strength. But at the end of the day, John, the roadmap, you said, what's the roadmap? The roadmap is just going to be Giannis. It's Giannis, and if Giannis, at the end of the day, I'll always put my money on the guys who have transcendent talent. And Giannis is he's going to be one of the greats. I think he's already – in my book, he's probably already –
you're not picking LeBron in the finals, so I don't know. Kind of contradictory.
Well, it's not because two things. Giannis has a better supporting cast, and Giannis is younger and has less miles. And Giannis has an easier path to the finals, whereas the Lakers are going through that gauntlet. So no, John, I'm not. But I still have. That's why I still have the Lakers.
How easy of a path is it if they go through Miami and then they go through Toronto, who they don't have Kawhi Leonard, and I don't love Toronto. I don't have Toronto actually in the second round. I have in the third round. I have the Celtics. But if they go through Toronto, another team with a bunch of big bodies to throw at him to wall up against Giannis. Do you see this is the thing, Alex? We know what Giannis is going to do. We're going to have to see it come from these other shooters and these other players.
I disagree.
It's going to have to happen.
If Giannis plays well, they can handle the Heat, they can handle the Raptors.
But we know that against the Heat, Giannis will not drop 50 points against the Heat.
All right, we'll see. Not 50, but he'll put up 35.
But if he puts up 35, obviously there's going to be another 70 points that are scored in that game. So
okay, we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Next up, talking about the Raptors, I think they're the next most interesting team
They
And
honestly
this,
might be higher the way everyone in the media is talking about them right now. Like,
yeah, I mean they're probably the hottest team in the NBA. They just finished the regular season with their franchise best winning percentage. No, not the time that they had Kawhi Leonard on their team, not the time that they had DeMar Rosen and Kyle Lowry teams. This season where they had Siakam as the focal point, they had Fred VanVleet as like the stud on their team. Of course, they did have the heart and soul of their team, Kyle Lowry, and they had their best regular season, which is why a lot of people are picking them to even make the finals, which I think is a little ridiculous because, of course, they don't have Kawhi. But that's the big question: is what can they do without Kawhi Leonard? They're the defending champions, and if you think about the past 5 years, 10 years, other than like the Mavericks, who are the worst title defense ever after 2011, like almost every team that you've seen win the title is like, all right, what are they gonna do next year? We had the Heat, we had the Spurs, we had Golden State. All these teams who had won, it's like, all right, next season you almost like pencil them in, like, yeah, they're not looking like they're gonna take a big step down. Whereas this Raptors team, a lot of people have counted them out as, like, relative to those other teams who have won the championship. So I
they're
think that's
actually
going to be the biggest
better,
story.
right? They had a better record in the regular season.
Yeah, they're better. They had a better record this year than they did last year in the regular season. So,
yeah.
and they have a chip on their shoulders.
And currently, right now, they're up 20 points in that first round series. So this is like extended bubble play. You know, like they were 7-1 in the bubble. You know, they got the rest of the guys when they needed to. They came out, they won 7 of their 8 games, which was nice. And here they are up 20. They're going to have just a quick 4-game sweep of this Nets team, be fully fresh for the Celtics, who that's the one thing I am worried about with my picking the Celtics to beat the Raptors is that the Celtics are going to have a tougher first-round matchup than, obviously, who the Raptors were going to have 20-point blowouts every single game.
Yeah.
So
that's very true. But at the same time, you know, the Sixers aren't looking too hot either.
Another fun storyline. I know I've seen this a few times, you know, on Twitter and on, you know, ESPN. People are picking this. The Kawhi versus former team NBA Finals matchup, right? Raptors versus the Clippers. You know, I don't want to see either of those teams make it. I'd rather have the Lakers, obviously. And I'm also rooting for my Heat, and I don't want to see the Raptors make it. But that would be extremely interesting to watch. So I would be down to see that if it did happen.
For sure. For sure. I mean, that it would be, you know, all the headlines would be insane. And just the fact that that's the main thing with them is like, oh, what are they going to do without Kawhi? It's like, all right, well, now let's see what they can do against Kawhi. So that would be really dope. But the next team, the number 7 team, is the Rockets. And the main story with the Rockets is, I guess there's 2 things. Is one, James Harden in the playoffs and how he's gonna play with Westbrook, of course, as well. But can James Harden finally get over the hump in the playoffs? He hasn't had a lot of playoff success. And number 2 is, how successful can their small ball lineup be? I mean, they're really, really going for it. And their tallest player is like, you know, 6'9" pretty much on their team in their rotation. And they're just, you know, saying, all right, we're running and gunning. We don't care. We don't care about centers. Centers are extinct in today's NBA, and we're just going for it. So those are the 2 headlines of the Rockets. Of course, they're going to probably play the Lakers in the second round if they can get out of the first round, which I actually think we didn't mention this one yet. The Rockets and Thunder first round is probably going to be the best series, I think. We have the matchup of the Clippers versus – let me say Clippers. We have Chris Paul versus the team that traded him and the guy that they traded him for. Yeah, not the Clippers. And versus his former teammate Harden. So that's just a lot of things going on there. And
Westbrook versus former franchise too.
Exactly. And Westbrook playing against the Thunder. And I always forget about this. Harden is also playing against the team that traded him. So Westbrook and Harden are just going to be like, they're going to come out guns blazing, ready to go.
Well, they are, and Chris Paul will as well. And I'm excited for this series, and I think it's so much more winnable for the Thunder, you know, because everyone's like, oh, is Westbrook not going to be playing? And that's going to be great to see, because I don't know how they're going to – I guess you put SGA on one of them. I mean, who guards Westbrook and Harden? Like, they're going to have to put 2 guys to lock up them. But obviously, it will be fun to see what the Rockets can do in this playoffs, because we're going to see nights where, you know, they run Steven Adams off the floor. They're going to run Dwight and JaVale off the floor, right? But Anthony Davis, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to – he's a guy. He's probably the worst – he's probably the worst guy for them to play, right? Because I think he can still guard PJ Tucker and Robert Covington as whoever they put at
No
their
doubt.
center.
No
Because
doubt.
he can close out. He's still quick enough and agile enough. But at the same time, he's still huge and dominant and will dominate any of those guys down low. So we're going to see Davis look – I mean, even in the first round as well, I don't know how well Nurkic will do against him. We're going to see Davis – he should dominate in the West.
Oh,
and then LeBron's going to probably have to earn it if they get to the finals against Giannis, because I think Davis will probably be a little bit more neutralized than the prior 3 rounds. So it's going to be fun to see what happens. And we haven't seen Harden do much, right, in the playoffs. Like, we've seen him choke a bit. And obviously, there was the 1 year. I do honestly think that if Chris Paul did not get hurt in 2018? Yeah, it was 2018. That team would have been a championship team. That might be one of the best teams that never made to the finals, honestly. They were a very, very well put together team. So I do want to see what happens. And then let's say by chance this Westbrook injury, they lose the first game. Westbrook misses 2 or 3 games in this series, and the Thunder pull out a series. What are we going to see Daryl Morey do next? It's like he's constantly like, it's kind of
he's always making moves. He's always looking for the next move. What can I do next? And he's pretty locked in on Harden. Like, it's pretty much what can I do? What can I surround Harden with to win a championship?
But not even just that. It's like just as a rock. We've always seen him do it, but it's like he grabs the paperclip. It's like actually there's an episode of The Office where there's like where Dwight is at a garage sale and he's like trading all these different things for different things. So he gets a paperclip and then he trades it for a candle, and then he trades a candle for a plant, and then he gets the plant and trades it for, and then he's trying to keep trading up, but eventually he like traded back down, and like that's kind of what we're seeing. Like eventually he's gonna run out of like first rounders to give up, and there's not gonna be the next guy to sign, and like I mean. I would love to. I do really love him as a GM and seeing what he's done.
Yeah, he always makes moves, and you want a guy like that.
Yeah, with even from back in the day, taking guys like Shane Battier, because the advanced statistics say Shane Battier was a great defensive point guy, and Robert Covington, right? He knew he wanted to trade for that guy because for the things that he does, he would be great with that team. And like right now, it's just going to be very interesting. Like, if they don't make it out, are they just going to run it back with the same Westbrook and Harden look? We saw them.
I mean, if it's because of Westbrook's injury, you probably have to run it back.
Yeah, I mean,
you got both of those guys, you're just going with it.
Or maybe Westbrook only misses 1 game and they still lose. Maybe I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it'll be interesting. I don't see that happening. I do think they're going to win this series. I think the Thunder are going to make it fun, but it'll be interesting to see if they just run it back. All right, are they just going to not sign a center? Are they going to run it again, another 82-game season, or however long the shortened season, I guess, next year will be, with the same, team that has no guys taller than 6'7"? It's just going to be really – I wonder what they're going to do.
For sure. Okay. Next up, we have the Boston Celtics, who I think, John, you're overrating a bit. I think the Kemba knee is a little sketchy. I don't really know who is like actually closing on that team. Who is their guy that's you give him? Is it Tatum? I don't know if I trust Tatum.
Kemba, and who else looks great is Brown, who looked great in the bubble. Brown was just playing amazing in that Portland game we watched towards the beginning of the I guess restart.
They do have a lot of options, but I guess I think they're a little top heavy. I think they're like, no one really talks about it, but I don't love their depth. I don't love that the guys off the bench they have, or even that Daniel Tice is getting as many minutes as he gets, and Semi Ojeleye and Brad Wanamaker is their backup point guard. Like, you went from last year where they had probably too many guys, and now I think their bench is a little bit thin. Obviously, though, when you have Tatum, Brown, Kemba, and Hayward, that's great. But I think the question here is, will Tatum return to 2018 playoff Tatum, when he was a rookie and he went toe-to-toe with LeBron and dunked on LeBron, and then he got them to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Towards the end of the season before the Corona happened and we had the restart. I think we saw him get back to that. And the second half of the bubble, he started playing a lot better too.
We've definitely seen him play as well as he did back then. I know last season he had a pretty disappointing second season. But
that was
the question, yeah, sure. But let's blame everything with Kyrie. But guess what? Now there's no more Kyrie. You got no more excuses. Right. So they are very young, but you did it when you were a rookie. Let's see, Tatum, can you do it again? Brown, can you do it again? And it will be interesting. And I do like that first round matchup with the Sixers, because I don't think they have anyone who's even like close to being able to slow down Embiid. And I would love for maybe Brad Stevens just like, screw it. Like let Embiid go like for 40 and 20 and we're just going to beat you everywhere else. Like, because I don't know. I mean, obviously they're going to try to stop him. They're just going to throw guys at him and they're going to do a lot of double teams because you'd rather maybe just say, all right, put the ball in Shake Milton's hand and he's going to be the one to beat us. But
or Josh Richardson, former Miami Heat player.
I guess I would just love to see the Sixers, I'd love to see Embiid just come in. And we always talk about this with Embiid about his attitude and his body language. And he's not always into it. He never comes into the season in great shape. And I remember at the beginning of the bubble, he was one of the guys who was like, yeah, I actually didn't want to go into the bubble. I didn't think it was a good idea. So it's like, Now you lost Simmons. I think he's going to be a little bit discouraged, but maybe he can, take a magic pill or something and he'll turn into give him the mindset of like Westbrook. Like, I don't care what's happening. I'm just going to get you.
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to score.
If you could put Westbrook, because we know he's capable of doing it. We know
we've seen him. We've seen him do it.
Right? But the issue is obviously whether it's the health or the, the mindset. If you put Westbrook's brain in there, I would love that series. Like, sign me up courtside. Like, I would love to watch him because they really don't have an answer. Like you said, Tice is not. He's that's barbecue chicken all day, Tice. And who's coming to slide over and help him? Is it Gordon Hayward or is it Tatum? Like all of them are. They're all undersized. So I would love to see him because we know he's talented enough to do it. But full disclosure here.
Stop shooting threes, Embiid.
Yeah, please. Full disclosure here, the Celtics were my pick to make it out of the East.
And You're crazy.
Listen, it's a rock, paper, scissors thing, okay? So you immediately say, what? Like, how did the Bucks not make it out? Who beat the Bucks? But no, I think the Heat are going to beat the Bucks, actually. So the Celtics are going to go through the Eastern Conference and not even have to beat Giannis and the Bucks, right?
They're going to have to beat the Raptors. They're not beating the Raptors.
Listen, they played, I think it was 4 times this year. They beat them in the bubble. The Raptors only lost in the bubble. And obviously, it ended up being a blowout, so they ended up playing all these other kind of crappy guys towards the end. Like Stanley Johnson was in at the end, and people were tweeting about it was funny how all their second-string guys or third-string guys.
Stanley Johnson's looking putting up some numbers.
Yeah. But they played 4 times this season, and Siakam did miss, I think, one of those. He missed maybe 2 of those when he was injured. But the Celtics, and listen, so playoff basketball completely different. The Raptors have come into their own. They're much better now. But the Celtics match up pretty well with them, and they won 3 out of those 4 matchups. So
I don't care about the regular season. Here's what I say.
I can't pick the Raptors to go to the finals, so I'm picking the Celtics.
Then pick the Heat then, John. Listen, head-to-head.
No, I'm also not going to jinx my own team like that.
Okay, fine.
So
that's fair. But you can't have a Miami team losing to a Boston team. That's blasphemous. Anyway, John, head-to-head.
We didn't match that up well. We didn't match up that well with them during the season.
I don't care.
Now we're sitting Myers Leonard. We're playing Jay Crowder. I do like that matchup a lot more for us, but I'm not ready to.
We just handled them. We just handled them without Butler the other day.
I know, but I'm still not gonna put that. And maybe I'm being too emotional. I'm not gonna jinx my own team. I got the Bucks. They're gonna beat the Miami Heat in the conference finals, and
you mean the Celtics? You're the Bucks.
Celtics, Lakers. Finals.
Yeah, and you just want the Celtics leader. But John, let me just talk about the Raptors-Celtics matchup. We both picked Pascal Siakam for our second team over Tatum. Like head-to-head, I know Tatum is great, and he's like such a like everyone on the internet loves him. He's a fun guy to watch. He's got a fun game. Like I feel like he's a likable guy. People love Tatum. But guess what? Siakam is a better player than Tatum, and head-to-head, I'm taking Siakam. And guess what? Head-to-head, I'm taking the team who just went to the finals, and now they have a chip on the shoulder. They're even more hungry than they were last year. They lost
the best player on that team, though.
It doesn't matter because guess what? They have the edge. They have the FU edge. They have the, you know what? You guys don't think we're going to do it? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it.
All right. Well, we'll see. The Celtics are – it's not like people are saying the Celtics are going to do it too. The Celtics are counted out as well, and they can do it as well.
I think more people like the Celtics than they should. And they're more
really because everyone is.
I'm not impressed.
Raptors wagon, and that's why I'm pushing so hard back because I'm like, guys, enough. Like this is blasphemous that we're talking about Kyle Lowry, like he's freaking like I don't know, just acting like he's Magic Johnson. Like
I'm just not impressed with the Celts, and you're gonna call me crazy because I know their chemistry is better without him, but I like them better with Kyrie.
Shut up.
Anyway.
Absolutely not.
The next team is a team that we saw go into overtime today in an instant classic. It is Denver Nuggets. And I guess the question with them is, can they take down one or both or any of the LA teams?
Right.
They're going to probably play the Clippers in the second round because it looks like, I mean, at this point, Donovan Mitchell dropped 57 on you and you still won. That looks like it. I really think that's going to be over with at most 6 games. The Nuggets will take care of the Jazz. And I think the question with them was always, all right, you have Jokic, who's your best player, but he's not exactly a closer. Like the NBA is not run by centers. It's run by perimeter players. So, but now guess what? You have Jamal Murray, who clearly proved that he's very clutch today.
He showed it last year in the playoffs as well. I know that they went 7 games in 2 series in a row with the Spurs and then with the Blazers. So they do have a decent amount of experience. But
yeah, they do.
He showed at the end of some of these games that he was going to hit those shots to put his team on top. So
yeah, and
he's doing just that again, like he did earlier today.
I know this guy's a rookie, but Michael Porter Jr., I don't know if you watched the first half of it. I know towards the second half he didn't play as many minutes, but he was looking nice. And they kept the one guy they kept comparing him to. He had this one pull up 3-pointer, like, oh, that looked just like Kevin Durant.
There was some loose Kevin Durant comparisons.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't hate it just because of, I mean, at least for that shot, I don't hate it.
If you're judging one single shot, okay. I think I look like Kobe when I'm in my driveway sometimes,
And I'm Devin Booker. Just kidding. But yeah, that pull-up shot was nice. And if he can put together a few rounds, even though he's a rookie, when he just, maybe he doesn't give you 25 and 10, maybe he's giving you a solid 15 points, but they're timely buckets when the Nuggets need buckets. Who knows? Maybe that Clippers series goes to 7. You texted us earlier today that Nick Wright picked the Nuggets over the Clippers, which I would never do. I think that's kind of crazy. And I know
that's
he's just
hilarious.
doing it because he's very anti-Clippers. He's trolling the Clippers. And but at the end of the day, I just think the Clippers are the better team, but who knows if Murray and Porter Jr. can be their bucket getters while Jokic runs everything else. I don't hate that. And their defense is underrated too. So.
Yeah, I think it's closer than people think. Obviously, if gun to your head, you said, all right, it's not going to be the Lakers, it's not going to be the Clippers. What team are you taking, to come out of the West?
I still wouldn't take that.
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, they just went to overtime with a Jazz team that really only has one guy and Rudy Gobert, an all-time great rim protector. But they are the number 3 seed, right? They're the 3rd team. I guess most people would probably try and lean on the star power thing, and you'd pick Westbrook and Harden to make it out. Or
that's what I would do.
Luka or maybe Chris Paul. But, I just think this team's a little bit under the radar because we saw what Murray's capable of. And Jokic did miss that game winner at the end of regulation. But that's a shot we've seen him make before.
And credit to Gobert. Most guys in the league, you should. Yeah. I think Kevin Love tweeted this. He said, if that player under the rim is anyone other than Rudy Gobert, then Jokic makes that shot. Which I don't hate that.
But you know what? I love that matchup because in the bubble they played earlier, it was another overtime or double overtime. I can't remember exactly, but it was about 2 weeks ago. They the same 2 teams played, and Jokic did so well on Gobert.
He torched him.
And that Gobert fouled out. So if Gobert can stay in, he stays in and he plays for overtime. The Jazz can stay in it. But getting back to how far we think that the Nuggets can go, I don't think they have a real shot against the Clippers, but I do think it's probably closer than most people think. That's a very fun series to watch. I'm definitely interested.
Of course.
The matchups are interesting.
Yeah, we got a lot of solid first round series, but these second round series are going to be electric.
Yeah. I mean, Jokic, I don't know who, is it more Zubac and Harrell on him?
Yeah.
We'll see how the Clippers do against these big guys like Jokic and Davis.
No bueno. No bueno for the Clippers for that matchup. But, of course, they don't really have anyone who can match up with Paul George and Kawhi. So, we'll see. Once again, that'll be a fun series. Okay, our last team, the 10th most interesting team going into the playoffs.
Okay, you know what? You just said our last team, but this is your list, and I'm just going to call you out right now. I don't know how the Blazers aren't here.
All right, well, first of all, you don't know who my 10th team is, so let me say it, and then I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why it's not the Blazers.
Oh, okay.
The 10th team is the OKC Thunder. John, the Blazers are playing the Lakers in the first round. I don't care how good they looked. I don't care. Listen, the odds are against them. Let's say they were like a 4 seed or a 5 seed. Maybe they can get to the conference finals against the Lakers, and then they still lose to the Lakers. But now they got to play the Lakers in the first round.
you contradict yourself because we know it's not who's going to go the farthest. It's the most interesting. And are they not the most interesting after what they just did in the
No.
bubble with the
No.
whole Dame factor and your boy Carmelo that you
No.
love so much,
Yeah,
right?
shout out
And
Carmelo.
another team, who was number 3 on your list, Alex?
The Mavericks, but let
And
me
are
explain.
they winning? How many more games are they winning than the Blazers? So it's not
There's
about
way.
winning.
It is not about that. It's about there's way more. Well, first of all, I would bet you money that the Mavericks will win more games in this
Really?
playoffs. In the
I'll
playoffs, than
bet you that. I bet they
Alright.
probably win the same amount. They both
Okay.
are going to win one game in this playoff.
Okay. Look, watch live bet everyone. You saw it. You heard it here first. The Mavericks will win more games in the playoffs than the Portland Trailblazers. But guess what? With the Mavericks, there's more upset potential. Dude, I know that Damian is playing incredible. I know that CJ's clutch. I know that, and I love Melo. Melo's looking nice. He's looking rejuvenized. But guess what? The rejuvenized? I think I made up a word. Revitalized and rejuvenated. There you go, rejuvenized. Melo's rejuvenized. But their defense is atrocious, John. They could not. I was watching that game, and I like very, very few times when I'm watching basketball, I'm like, dang, that was just terrible defense. But there's times where like they were playing their pick and roll, and they just left guys wide open. It was pretty bad. And so their defense is terrible. They're not going to be able to do anything versus LeBron and Davis. So the reason they're not interesting is because I don't even think the first round matchup is interesting. I think Clippers versus Mavericks is interesting because we don't know. I can see things happening. I don't think Portland does anything against the Lakers.
But you see what I just did? I just proved my point, and you actually proved it for me because all I did was bring them up, and they completely stomped on your number 10 team, the Thunder.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, let's stop disrespecting. No, because I needed to expose you for your bad take.
Clearly proving that the Blazers are more interesting because you just spoke about them.
No, I had to expose your take. I exposed your take, and now let me get to the OKC. Stop disrespecting Chris Paul. Listen, first round matchup, we're talking about that with the Blazers. That the OKC is way more interesting because we have Chris Paul versus a team that traded him. We have him and a bunch of very young players and guys who have a chip on the shoulder because, once again, we said this a lot the last episode, no one really saw them even making the playoffs. Maybe they had them as an 8 seed. A lot of people thought they were trading. You said you thought it was a meme that he was even wearing an OKC jersey.
And I saw a graphic on Twitter. It was like the first game of the season, and it was like Oklahoma City Thunder, 0.2% chance to make the playoffs.
That's right.
Being a number 5 seed. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't buy any of those ESPN win percentage. Like, what is that based off of, that 0.2%? Like, is there an equation that
No, they do base it off some things, but with that, it was weird because, like, I know at the beginning of the season, you didn't think they'd be great or even good, or you didn't think they'd be good. And I thought they'd be good because I looked on paper and I saw Chris Paul, Steven Adams, the rest of their players that they had on a playoff team the year prior. And I was like, oh, that looks good to me. Whereas you were like, they're not even going to have Chris Paul. So I don't know how you could measure that. But the reason I think they're super interesting is because that matchup with the Rockets is going to be very competitive. And right now Westbrook's hurting, so he's out. We don't know how many games he's going to miss exactly. But if he misses the first 2, 3, 4 games, maybe they run away with it. And then guess what? Second round, you have Chris Paul versus his banana boat buddy, LeBron. Okay? So it'll be very interesting. I want to see, like, everyone doubted them in the regular season, and they made it to the playoffs. They made it to the 5 seed. Now everyone's probably going to doubt them again. I didn't pick them. I picked the Rockets to win that series. But let's see what they can do. They've proven the doubters wrong before. Like, I think they can do it again.
Yeah,
and I don't think the Portland Trailblazers even have a chance of proving the doubters wrong.
Yeah, if you ask me, non-Heat, non-LeBron team that I most want to win, like, obviously, like, just CP3. I mean, I guess a lot of people don't like him. He's kind of polarizing.
Yeah, I love Chris Paul.
CP3. I mean, when we were young, Alex and I were in LA. We got to go to a Clippers game. They were like my favorite team to watch other than the Heat. Obviously, Lob City. I was like,
and shout out Blake Griffin, man. Love him. I'm sad he's stuck in Detroit. But.
I saw like a highlight tape of his on like Twitter the other day, and man, he looked so good. I can't believe he's like not even on a relevant team.
No, I mean he got injured this year, but last year he was an All-Star again. So
yeah, he was. I think he was also All NBA first.
Oh, no, definitely not first. Might have been second. Or third.
I know it wasn't first. He was All NBA third. I mean,
yeah,
he was All NBA third team I think last year. But again, CP3, I loved him. Just growing up watching him in middle school, watching Lob City was so fun. Like for kids to watch all these dunks and everything. So definitely want to see CP3 go far in the playoffs. I know he's never done it that much before, especially as the number 1 guy. But just another really quick thing. If you talk about just value, like a most valuable player, like he's got to be like think about like really, and another guy who's in this conversation, I think, is like a guy like Donovan Mitchell, which is why I had him on the third All NBA third team over Russell Westbrook. Donovan does so much for his team by himself without any other stars, I feel like, than like Westbrook, who has another star with him. Similarly, CP3 with no other guys got this team to a number 5 seed in one of the most loaded Western conferences we've seen in a long time. So I don't know. That's just what I think.
Yeah,
right there.
definitely brings a lot of value.
Rooting for CP3.
Yeah, I want to see him have a good playoffs because, I mean, the clock's ticking, and it looks like if I had to bet, he's probably not going to win a ring in his career. But hopefully he can show us all why he's the point guard.
Yeah, unless he hops on a wagon of like, I don't know, the Heat or the Lakers or something.
It's too bad. His contract is just the worst one in the league. It's untradeable. I mean, he's going to make like $40 million next year. $40 million.
You know what? Oof. In 10 years from now, we're going to see him on one of those like NBA legend roundtables, and they're all going to be talking. He's going to be like, yeah, like it still keeps me up at night. I still think about how I didn't win a ring. And it's like, bro, you literally like did it to yourself. And like, I love.
All right, shut up. All right, shut up. Now you're being crazy.
No, you take these contracts and
bro,
look,
45 million when he's like 37. Like he had to, bro. Like, are you kidding me?
Okay, well, fine, but then don't sit. I'm just saying, then don't sit on that NBA legend round table in 10 years from now and talk when you're talking with Shaq and Chuck and Dwayne Wade, and you're like, oh, I didn't win a ring. Like, you know, that's the one thing. It's like, I don't want to.
You're getting mad at him for saying something that he has never said.
No, I'm just saying, I know it's gonna happen. We're gonna see it happen, and he shot himself in the foot because he could be on Milwaukee or Miami right now. You know.
All right. Well, anyway,
or even LA.
Those are the 10 teams. Let's run through it. This is my list, not yours, John. Okay, I'll say it. But we had the Lakers, the Bucks, the Mavericks, the Clippers, the Heat, the Raptors, the Rockets, the Celtics, the Nuggets, and the OKC Thunder as the 10 most interesting teams going into the playoffs. Now, before we wrap up the episode, John, I think we should each give our general playoff predictions. And why don't you tell me what your bracket is? Why don't you just kind of run through it really quick?
So I already kind of mentioned a lot of it while we were going through the episode. But first round in the West, I had Lakers over Blazers 4-1. I don't think, Portland's going to be able to win more than one. I know people are all hyped up about it. I don't see that going more than 5 games. I got Rockets Thunder going 7, but I got the Rockets making it out. Then I also got another 7-game series in there, Nuggets and Jazz. I like that doesn't
look nice anymore.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was a close game. It was a close game today, so honestly, I should feel more confident about that pick, honestly. But if it takes
if Mitchell can drop 60 every night,
yeah, if he has to drop 60 every night, I don't know. Maybe he does do it. I don't know, but actually,
I don't know.
Historically, it's very probably. And then I got 4-1 Clippers over the Mavericks. That's my first round. Second round in the West, I got Lakers over Rockets 4-2 in 6 games. Then I got the Clippers as well in 6 games over the Nuggets. I got a Western Conference, LA versus LA finals. And I got the Lakers. I got LeBron James in Game 7. I'm picking him to go. And then in the Eastern Conference, I pretty much got sweeps in the first round for the Bucks, Celtics, and for the Raptors.
You're not giving Embiid one game?
I just don't think – I think they're just too stacked. And listen, if he shows up like we know he's capable of talent-wise, then yes, they could do it. However, I'm betting on the sweep. And they're also my finals pick. So I think if they're going to have the legs to make it that far –
oh, they're going to have to sweep.
They're going to have to sweep them to be able to take the Raptors on in the second round and the Heat on in the third round. Or the Bucks if it's not the Heat. And then I have the Heat with the gentleman's sweep against the Pacers. TJ Warren, he averages like 10 points per game against us, which is like 7 points lower than his average this season. So, yeah, we really shut him down. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, I got a 7-game series. I got the Heat over the Bucks. It's not going to be in Milwaukee, so winnable game for Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler, he's our closer. Goran Dragic, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Bam Adebayo. I could literally name all our guys and like just such a beautiful created roster. Okay. Then I also got another 7-game series. I got Celtics over the Raptors. I am picking the Tatum and Brown young core versus that Siakam, Van Vliet, Kyle Lowry, a core that everyone else loves.
Man, Drake is gonna drop a diss track against you.
I mean, he's gonna have to against the Celtics after they win in 7 games. Again, no home court, so I am picking the Heat and the Celtics to win. Like I guess road win Game 7, which they're not really on the road, obviously. So And then again, like I said, I got the Celtics making to the finals. So I got the Celtics over the Heat in 6 games. I'm not jinxing my team, not walking into that trap. And then we got 10 years later, we got a reunion between the 2 most storied franchises of all time. I got the Lakers over the Celtics in 5 games. And the Lakers will tie the Celtics for the most championships of any franchise with 17 for each of them. And this will be the quick ascension of the Lakers as the greatest franchise in NBA history. And they will leave the Celtics in the dust. And pretty soon we'll just remember the Celtics as a team that won a bunch in the 60s and never did anything else after that.
That sounds nice. That sounds really nice. I would love for that to happen, but unfortunately it won't. Go Heat. I'll run through mine. I mean, this is the bracket that I made. Like, so if I had to make a bracket with my heart, I would have Lakers in the finals versus the Heat. If I had to do it with strictly my head, it'd probably be the Bucks versus the Clippers. But if I had to just throw money on it, which I'm not throwing any money on this, but if I did, this is probably what my bracket would look like. Lakers in 5 over Portland, Houston in 7 over OKC, the Clippers in 5 over Dallas, and Denver in 6. Although if I had to go back and switch it, I'd probably switch it to 5 now just because of that game.
So we actually have the same first round in the West, except I have Denver 4-3, you have Denver 4-2 over the Jazz. Cool.
And then I have the Lakers beating the Rockets. I think that's only going to be a 6-game series. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 5. I don't think it'll go 7 though. And then I have the Clippers over Denver in 6 games, which I think that's probably a hot take. Like, I don't know if I really trust Denver that well, but
I think that's fair.
I think the Clippers are still having to figure themselves out, and that's why Denver is going to be able to get 2 wins off of them.
So I have the same picks there too. So our West is exactly the same actually.
Right. And then I just can't bet against LeBron. I'm going to say LeBron / the Lakers in 7 against the Clippers. And then we go to the East. I got Milwaukee and Toronto sweeping, and I have the Heat and the Celtics doing the gentleman's sweep in 5 games. I have the Heat taking Milwaukee to 7, but I just, at the end of the day, got to bet on the better player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I do think Toronto, I think Toronto's going to win 6 against the Boston Celtics. Screw the Celtics also. Screw the Celtics fans if you're listening. And then I have Milwaukee winning in 6 over Toronto. Giannis is going to get over those demons, those dinosaurs, the Raptors over his head that he dreams about at night. And Eric Bledsoe will as well. And in the finals, I just think the Lakers are going to be gassed. And I just think that's when Giannis is going to fully take the torch from LeBron as the best player in the world and officially take it. Like, no one really can dispute it. And that is when the Bucks will probably win in about 6 games.
Dang. So you're giving LeBron, what is that, his 8th loss in the finals?
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, his legacy is pretty much set.
This will be LeBron's 10th finals if he makes it, right? 10? Yeah, 10. He's on to 9 so far. He's 3-6. So
yeah, I mean, I once again, it comes down to like, who would I bet on? Like, if I had to put money on it,
who would you bet? Like, no, stop. Just as a question, like sports, who are you gonna bet on? It's got to be LeBron. Like, I'm
always
sorry.
LeBron. But guess what? He's 2 years out of the playoffs. He's 35 years old. Their bench isn't very good. When we've seen LeBron win,
it's just a number. What has he shown you, Alex?
John, well, actually, in the bubble, he hasn't shown me a lot, to be honest.
Really?
He had one good
didn't
game.
show you that when he clinched the 1 seed and then sat for the rest of it after beating the Clippers?
Yeah, but that was one of the worst games of the past 5 years LeBron has had.
You're right, but the team beat them. They matched up, and they didn't.
And guess what? If LeBron and Davis do the tag team thing where Davis goes for 3 quarters and then disappears in the 4th, and LeBron is struggling a little bit in the first 3 quarters, and then in the 4th he takes over, then sure, then that's a roadmap to winning.
They have 2 top 5 players.
When we've seen LeBron win, he's had a strong supporting cast, and right now he has Davis. But then who's the 3rd best player? I don't know.
He's going to need Kuzma. I can't believe we haven't even mentioned that this episode.
I just mentioned at the beginning. I did say they're depending a lot on Kuzma, which I don't like. I'm not a fan of that. I love Kuzma.
And the other thing is they're going to need Danny Green to be great, especially in this first round. He's going to have to defend, I guess, Dame or CJ, one of these guys. And then after those 4, I get what you're saying, but I think we're going to see some good defense and some dunks and some rebounds from Dwight and JaVale. And I think Caruso and Dion Waiters and Rondo potentially could come back. I think they're going to be able to get it done. because those first two are just as strong as potentially any duo we've seen, honestly.
Oh yeah, X factor of the entire NBA playoffs. Dion Waiters.
Yeah.
Just
Waiters
Dion.
Island for
Waiters
sure.
Island. Well, that does it for our playoff preview and predictions. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This is a fun time. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. I'm excited that everything's back and that you know what I was watching the
Heat
game
are
and
back too.
huh?
And the Heat are back too.
We're back in the playoffs. It's been 2 years now. I guess over 2 years because of the corona. But you know, I'm really excited and it's a little bit different with no fans. But listen, playoff basketball is playoff basketball, and I'm watching it from home, so I don't really care. But
That's true.
that'll do it. Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a good one. Go Heat. Peace out.